Do you ever feel like you're just watching the clock, waiting for the day to be over so you can go to sleep? When you quit drinking, the days suddenly feel really long, and it's hard to know how to fill that time. If this sounds familiar, stay tuned for today's episode. You'll get some great ideas.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery Podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and that recovery isn't just rewarding, but it's also a lot of fun. We're your hosts, Steve and Julie. Listen as we get together with friends to shed light on the hard things, talk about the other side of addiction, and how we create a life so full, there's no space left for alcohol.
Don't forget, we host a sober support group on Zoom every Monday night so that all of our listeners can come chat about the topic. You can get more information about the meeting on our website at throughtheglassrecovery.com. Hi, everybody. It is so nice to be back. We are here with brand new guests for you guys. It is season 3, episode 1. So it is great to be sitting back behind the computer and jumping into some new conversations. Really happy to be here. We're going to go through our introductions, let you guys meet. We've been scouring the internet for the whole summer, looking for new guests to bring to share their perspectives with you guys. So we have some new faces, some new voices. I'm going to let Peggi go first. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am 5 years alcohol-free as of July 12th of this year. I am a social worker. I teach for University of UC Davis in California. And so that's part of my story, is that secondary traumatic stress from direct practice. Probably one of the biggest contributors to me trying to numb out after being exposed to little kids being abused and adults being abused. That was a huge impetus for me to drink. I wrote a book called This Side of Alcohol in 2021. It's been very successful. And in 2022, I joined forces with Susie Streelman from Zero Proof Experiences, Sober in the City, and we are putting on our 8th Sober in the City event in Seattle in September. That's awesome. And we're really excited, and it's growing. And we also, have a membership that it's all encompassing. I'm alcohol free now. What? So we have a couple of connect calls every week. We also promote people having local pop-ups because it's wonderful that we have Zoom, but also it's really nice to meet people in person. So we facilitate those kind of local pop-ups to really promote not only new ways of drinking, but also promote the businesses that are popping up due to this alcohol-free trend. So
awesome.
So yeah, I'm pretty busy. Been married for a long time and have 13 grandkids.
Amazing. Well, that is wonderful. Make sure you send us the links to all of these really cool things you're doing in the recovery space. We will make sure they're in our show notes so our listeners can check out all of the cool things that you're doing and get a copy of your book and all of that good stuff. So yeah, really, really happy to meet you and get to hang out with you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And next we're going to go with Ben.
Hey guys, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. My name is Ben, and I am a grateful alcoholic. And I say that because I don't think I would have found the joys of life if it had not been for finding recovery and sobriety. So I think even if I hadn't become an alcoholic, I wouldn't know what I know now being one, So I always introduce myself as a grateful alcoholic because it's an experience I don't think I'd want to trade, really. It didn't kill me. It almost did. But I am coming up on 18 years of sobriety in October. And my road's been a little bit bumpy and a little bit not congruent with recovery, so to speak. Just because I don't drink doesn't mean I don't think like an alcoholic. So that's something that's been kind of a struggle throughout my sobriety. But I live in Massachusetts, and I am, in the last couple of years, I've gotten really heavy into work in recovery. I got back into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and started sponsoring people and started doing big book studies. And I'm in the process of writing my first book, and about a little bit about my journey in recovery and some other things that I've been sort of working on as a way to manage your day-to-day emotions, I guess. Sort of like a roadmap as to how you set your intention for the day, which I think is important. And I've been self-employed for most of my life, although I drive truck right now, but I am an entrepreneur and an inventor, and I have a whole bunch of things cooking. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here, really happy to be sober, and really happy to be a part of a different form of recovery support. This is great. I love AA, but I don't preach it. I think any way that you get sober and can stay sober you're a rock star in my book. So really glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, just really appreciate you being here. One of the most important things is everybody brings their own experience, their own background, their own version of recovery to this podcast. And I think it's really important that all of our voices are heard. So I'm really happy that you're here. You're here with AA and you're here with an open mind. And that makes me so happy to hear. And I love the stuff that you put on Facebook. So make sure that you send us those links also. We'll get our people in touch. You've got a great group going, and just really cool to get to hang out with you in person.
Thank you. And I just want to say, Peggy, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've been on your page for a while and have skimmed over your book. I'm a wicked slow reader, so I get into a book and I put it down and I pick up another one and I put it down and I get back to that. But it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm so glad you're here. And Ian, like I said, I've been following your artwork now for a bit, and it's just a pleasure to meet you guys. You're like my Facebook sobriety heroes. And of course, you guys too, Julie and Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty neat because this is all contacts we've met through Facebook. And generally speaking, we don't have like a whole group of people from like one social media platform. Normally it's either Instagram or TikTok or some personal friends or whatever. So this is like one whole group of some of our Facebook contacts. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody has some familiar names. Now we get to put faces to them and everything.
Yep.
So. Cool. And then last but not least, we have Ian. How are ya?
Hi. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
So, my journey started back in February, and now I'm just right around 6.5 months. And I've also tackled the cigarette dragon, so to speak, and that's been 3 months. So, yeah, I've so enjoyed sobriety. I'm an abstract artist, and I've just noticed with sobriety how much my creativity has exploded, and it's just such a gift. Every day it feels like it gets better, and I love to be on this journey and to see other people start to experience that, and like it's a gift that happens every day. I've been a part of a private Facebook group called Slay the Dragon, and it's been amazing. Everybody is so supportive, which I think is just so important on our journey.
Yep.
I've become a moderator and an admin just recently. So it helps you just as much as it helps them. And that's the big thing that I've noticed being in that group is, it's, in a way, it's kind of selfish, but it's selfish by helping others, and I just love it. And, I just want to help as many people as I can. And I'm just super glad to be here.
Awesome.
You know what they say, right? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think everybody here can identify with that. We help other people and it also helps us just as much. And I think that's a really big part of why a lot of us that are in the sober community and especially out there doing like the sober influencer thing, that's why we do what we do, because it helps us stay strong in our recovery when we're out there helping other people. So we definitely all understand what you're talking about there for sure.
It's selfish and selfless all at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. I guess that would be more of more of what it is.
Yeah.
So, and then it's just neat to, help or have people say that they've helped you, and then you start to help people, and then those people start to help people, and it's the ripple effect.
Yep, it's the ripples.
And
Absolutely.
I love it. And it's just been really neat to get in touch with my inner child again, who has been, stifled for so long. And little Ian didn't deserve any of this. And so to be able to, hug him again. And,
Absolutely.
I think that's just something that's just so important in our journey. And part of just being happy again is being able to reconnect, and not be numb.
Yep.
To be able to feel all the feels is the huge thing. And that's part of being alive, and some days are going to be really rough and some days are going to be wonderful. But if you just go through everything numb, then you're not experiencing this life. And
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think that's one of the most beautiful things is when we learn how to experience the full range of emotions. It's a gift. So yeah, well, we thank you all three for being here. Let's go ahead and talk about our topic. When you think about how much time alcohol takes up in your life, it's kind of crazy. There's the time you spend actually drinking, which for many of us was several hours each evening. But then there's also the time you spend thinking about drinking and the time you spend actually going to get alcohol and the time you spend hungover, recovering from drinking. So when you remove alcohol from your life, all of that time is suddenly freed up and it's hard to know what to do with it all. We hear a lot of people talk about how hard it is to fill up that free time and how bored they find themselves. Boredom is, of course, a common cause of relapse. So how do you fill your time? How do you deal with boredom now? And if you've been sober for a long time, what did that look like in early sobriety? Anybody is welcome to start. We'll just dive into a conversation.
Hey, I'll start. But when I got your email, Steve, yesterday, I literally fell over laughing because this is it's like a perfect topic for me. Absolutely perfect. I was a very high functioning drunk. And I drank, I was a maintenance drinker, and I drank around the clock for many, 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 many years. I was self-employed, and it ended up almost taking my life. I pretty much nearly drank myself to death, but for a long time it worked. And oh my gosh, I mean, the conspiracies and the lies and the stories, and I mean, oh my gosh, the time spent, I don't know if I spent more time thinking about drinking, thinking about when I was going to get my next drink, or drinking. I'm not sure which one I spend more time doing because, I started drinking at 14, and it wasn't drinking alcoholically right from the get-go, but right from the first time I ever experienced my first experience with alcohol, I was already always thinking about that next time I was going to get to drink. And I didn't know that was alcoholic thinking because, back then it was like just fun and trying to fit in and whatever the reason is. But as I've processed, my alcoholic life and whatnot, you realize a lot of the alcoholic behavior, and yeah, man, I'll tell you, what a sham. It was just, it really was just awful. I mean, just the lies and the deceit and the dishonesty, and it just led to my, it's my poor ex-wife. I'm actually divorced twice, and sober my second marriage, but got sober before I got divorced. And I mean, I would go to 15 different liquor stores a day, you know what I mean, just to, I don't know, play the game, right? And at the end, my ex-wife would follow me around, and oh gosh, it's a wonder I ever got anything done. But I love the topic anyway, so and I'm sure I'll get a chance to share more on it. But it's what a great topic, and it really does. It controlled my life. I mean, absolutely controlled my life. And it took me a long time to fill all of that, either thinking to the doing. It took me a long, long time. I mean, I did it with meetings, but I mean, my early sobriety, I went to 3 meetings a day a lot of times. So that's sort of how I battled that in the very early stages. But yeah, well, how crazy, the insanity, right? Just the insanity of it all. It's maddening, Good topic, though.
Yeah, I know when I tried to moderate, that was, I think, when I was spending the most amount of time focusing on alcohol. That's what I was thinking about it all the time, right? And that's what I noticed, because I was sober for a while and I relapsed for about a year. And in that year, I was trying to convince myself and whatever that I could moderate. And it felt like all I was doing was thinking about alcohol from morning until I'd finally given a drink. So yeah, definitely we spent a lot of time focusing on alcohol in one way or another. What about you guys, Ian or Peggy? How does boredom fit into your life, and what do you do about it?
I think for me, I was more of a later life drinker. I always drank in a bingey way, but alcohol wasn't like the center of my world for a long time until I really hit my early 50s, and again, really centered around my job, and also I'm a stepmother, which is can be another topic. That's not an easy thing to do. One of the harder things, and something my colleagues in here haven't experienced is menopause. It all hit me at one time. It was all, and actually until just recently, I didn't put it together. Right, I couldn't sleep. I had severe insomnia, and boy, at first, actually, what happened is my doctor prescribed benzos to go to sleep. And when they took them away from me, alcohol just seemed to be the easy fix. But for me, I had a lot of people around me making excuses for me, saying, oh, you work so hard. You have such a hard job. Just eat when you drink. And this is my family really saying, I really seriously passed out in the garage, and my 2 best friends said, you have the hardest job in the world. No wonder you're all stressed out. And it's like, really, that's not normal to pass out.
Right.
Right.
Like 6 p.m. Right. So my daughter was the one that said, Mom, if you don't do something about your drinking, you can't have the relationship you want with me, Jason, and the kids. And at that time, she has 2 sets of twins. And that was too high of a price for me to pay. My husband had left. He fortunately or unfortunately came back. But I kind of had the opposite effect. I for some reason, the Sober Sis program went across my Facebook page. I signed up immediately. They have a Marco Polo kind of thing that goes on. And so it's a kind of a video walkie-talkie, and I was put in a group of 25 women. Those women I wasn't deer in a headlight, but those people held me up. I'm still friends with them 5 years later. So I journaled from day one. I never journaled in my whole entire life before. I read every Quit Lit book that was on, listened to podcasts like a lot of people do. I was so convinced that I knew I was done. When my daughter asked me to stop drinking, that was all I needed. I did not need anything else. And so I made myself real visible, if that makes sense. I would I would not spend all day with her, but she lives in the town one over, and I would go over and, we'd get manicures and pedicures with the kids, and I would just come over for 5 or 10 minutes so I could just prove to her that I was okay for that day. I was like obsessed with it.
That probably also, though, gave you that fills some of that time, right? And gives you the connection. I think that was something big that a lot of us did to fill that time, was not just stay busy, but stay busy with purpose, stay busy with connection. And like Ben talked about, meetings. And I think that was a really important thing for me with the boredom, was not just keeping myself busy, not just a big long list of how can I fill all of this time, but filling that time with meaningful connection, kind of brought some intention to it. And I imagine that's probably what you got with your daughter, even in those little visits, though, was some
and I
meaningful.
needed to go to her, right? Because my boys were like, hey, Mom, just don't drink in front of Lindsay.
Oh, yeah.
That was their solution. Because they didn't see me as the problem that she saw, because she looked closer to me and saw more of it, right? So
that makes sense, yeah.
And I went to bed. I mean, some days I would just be so sad that I would go to bed like at 6 p.m. Going to sleep early was kind of a sober gift for me, is just to, and a lot of that too, just ending with what I'm saying now, is that Paul had come back about 3 months in, and he was pissed off and angry at me. So really I hid out in my bedroom, because it was like every time I walked out into the hallway, I could feel the anger. And I'm like, why are you here? Why did you come back? Because you're really angry. And it was at least easier when you weren't around. And, he's since then kind of found William Porter and Annie Grace. But I really can't say that I was bored. I was so, I drank 150% and I got sober the same way.
That makes sense.
Just found other ways to fill that time.
Yeah. What about you, Ian? Have you run into boredom at all?
Oh boy, no.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
So, like I said, I'm an abstract artist, and between painting and spending time in the sober guild, that's the majority of what I do. And, to not be chained by alcohol anymore. That was it. And that's really what it is, coming home from work and, being in a relationship where, we would just drink. We stopped, we used to go to shows and, go and hang out with friends. And then now she's my ex-girlfriend, but we just became codependent drinkers, and you really get chained to your house, and you get chained to that poison. And now that those chains aren't there, I'm painting way more. There was a time where I didn't pick up a paintbrush for a year,
Yeah.
And that's and it's a weird thing, because painting helps with my depression, but if I don't paint, I get depressed. It's weird, and alcohol, just adds to that. So it's just been such a blessing to, be able to have that extra time, and if I ever feel like I'm bored, I go and try and help people in the guild, or I paint. So, yeah.
I think I was angry too for the first year. I was so pissed off. I was so mad. I hated my husband. I hated everyone, because I wanted this to be my idea. The first, so many times I had quit. I'd had 9 months, 6 months, 90 days, because I, obviously knew there was an issue. But I was so mad that the choice was taken out of my hands. I wasn't mad at my daughter, but I was really, really pissed off. And for the first year, I had this sort of, I had this fantasy to drink again and then quit because I chose to quit, not someone else didn't choose it for me. And it really took up till year 3, I think, for me to let that go. Now it doesn't matter. And now not drinking is just who I am. But I'm fairly successful, in my career. And this is just the one thing I couldn't do right. And I wanted to be the one to stop drinking. And so that anger kind of pushed me through a lot of things. I was really everything. Right. And I just had to, all of a sudden I had this transition from I'm not angry anymore because I wasn't the one that made the decision. And literally I was in the end.
Right.
That made the decision.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still yours for sure.
I called it the chaos of nothingness. Like when I quit drinking, I felt that void, and I didn't have hobbies. I had 2 little kids. I didn't have hobbies. All of that stuff was gone. So when it was all replaced with alcohol, because I drank from morning to night for the most part. And so when it was gone, now what do I do with myself? Because I didn't even know what to do with myself anymore. It's like, okay, I can't drink. So first I'm going to freak out about the fact that I can't drink, because that's what I did. I freaked out about now what am I going to do? This is what I do with this time. This is what I do in this space, because I drank and drove a lot. So I had to figure out what am I going to do differently while I was driving, because I didn't know what to do differently while I was driving, because I was thinking about drinking and the next intersection and making sure the bottle was down and inside the center console while I was driving. So when, you get to the places where someone could see it was away. And so all of that thinking disappeared. I ended up living on the phone for a while every time I drove. That's how I did something different, because I had to do something different. When I was at home, I decided that somebody gave me the suggestion of, is there something new you want to try? And I said, okay, I've always wanted to bake bread. And so I started baking bread. I just gave it a try, and I let it be. And it ended up being something that was super, super important to my recovery, because I filled a lot of my drinking time with bread making time, especially on the weekends when my day wasn't filled with work. And it was just like quitting smoking. As soon as I took it away, I don't have a thing for my hands. I don't have a bottle to put to my mouth. All of these little trained reactions, trained thought patterns, all had this emptiness to it, because I no longer had my best friend and also my worst enemy.
I feel like when I quit, so I spend most of my time alone. My husband works out of town for weeks at a time, so it's always just been me and my kids, right? And my kids, when I quit drinking, were 13 and 17, so older. They didn't really need me. They weren't really keeping me busy or filling my time so much at that age, right? So I was just on my own. I drank. Once they were that age, I was drinking, at 2:00 in the afternoon, if not earlier in the morning most days. And that was how I entertained myself. So I had to fill all of that time and space. And I had hobbies, but the hobbies kind of fell by the wayside because I was too drunk to really care about them. I didn't want to go garden. I didn't want to go knit. I didn't want to, work on sewing. I'm very much an artist, and I just didn't have the energy or the creativity or the desire to even start doing it, even to pick up a paintbrush or whatever. And so when I quit drinking, I'm like, it felt like there were 635 hours in the day. And 2:00 would hit and I would just be like, what am I going to do for the rest of this day? And it was like torture. I would watch the clock. I felt like I was watching the clock, and 5 minutes would go by and it felt like an hour. So for me, it was really important to start filling that time. And then one thing I noticed was, I didn't feel like doing all of these things. I had a list, right? Somebody told me early on, make a list of all the things you can do to fill your time. Go for a walk, play with your dog, cook a meal, bake a cake, all the things. And I'm like, I don't feel like it. I just want to sit here and pout because I can't drink anymore. And the biggest thing was just getting up and going and doing whatever it was, like forcing myself to do it. The motivation wasn't going to show up. I had to actually just get up and do it, whether I felt like it or not. And that was a big thing in the beginning. Once I started doing that, then I realized how fulfilling it was to do all of those different things. And I could start actually, you do the thing and then you're motivated to do it again because it felt good. So, we all, I think, sit around and wait for the motivation to get up and go do something that's good for us. And sometimes it never shows up and then you're just sitting there doing nothing, waiting for it, scrolling the phone. That was something I did. And when I finally just forced myself to get up and go do it, even though I didn't feel like it, that's when things changed a lot because it felt good to go do it. So then I would go do it again. The action had to come before the motivation, not the other way around. And that was an important lesson in early sobriety for me, especially because like Ian, I dealt with a lot of depression. And when you're depressed on top of all of that, you don't feel like even like standing up and walking to the kitchen to eat a snack, let alone get up and do something productive. So it was very much just forcing myself to do the things that I knew I needed to do. And I still do that sometimes. I still fall into slumps where I don't have the energy and I don't have the desire. And then I just sit there and I'm like, it's 6 o'clock in the evening. What am I going to do for the next 3 or 4 hours until bedtime? And it's just a matter of actually forcing myself to get off the couch, put my phone down and go throw the ball for my dogs or go, work on a painting or whatever it is. So that's been huge, is just making the decision to do it even if I didn't feel like it.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, like going to a meeting, my theory is, and I've heard it said many times, is that the best time to go to a meeting is when you don't want to go. And I can implement that into many facets of my life. The best time to do anything is when you don't want to do it, is what I found. More so, to prove to yourself that you can do stuff even when things are hard. I suffer from really bad depression and I have that alcoholic racing brain, it just, if I'm not, that's what booze did to me. Booze slowed my brain down enough where I could sort life out. If I wasn't drinking, I could there were days like I would sit in a chair just staring off into nowhere, knowing that I have a list of 9,000 things to do and basically not getting anything done because it's like the vortex of everything spinning around and you just can't grab that one thing and pull it out and say, okay, I'm going to do this and get this out of the way. And that's what booze did to me. Booze allowed me to sort my life out, I guess, and I managed to not get drunk until the day was sort of done. And, I was passed out, blacked out by 6, 7 o'clock every night. And then I was up for work at 3 a.m. with a few rips off the bottle to get myself out the door. You know what I mean? And that was how I rolled for a long time. But, and I know I sound like an AA meeting, but I found so many more helpful ways to balance my recovery, not just AA, but there's so many things that resonate with me from the program that I can identify with. So I know I speak it a little bit, but I don't preach it for sure. So, but that restless, irritable discontentedness, I still have it, and if I'm not working on, if I'm not working on my recovery and working on trying to figure out ways to share the message, spread the message, be there for somebody, help somebody. I probably talk to anywhere from like 5 to 15 drunk addicts a day, I only sleep 3 hours a night. And I made my profile public and I started my sober face group page or group or whatever. And, I tell everybody, just call, just write, just message. 99% of the time I'm awake, and since I started about 2 years ago, when I really, maybe 3 now, when I really started to jump back into my own version of recovery, not just AA's version of recovery, that's when my life like really got full. And I invented a product and I created a mission around it. And it's all based on helping vets and first responders who suffer with addiction and suicide, especially first respond. Well, it started out as vets until I learned more about the challenges of first responders, and we can talk about that another time. But yeah, I mean, filling the time has just become all about recovery now for me. And a little side note, I got away from meetings at about 11 years sober, and between 11 and 15 years sober, I tried to kill myself twice. So that's where I got in that period. So when I came out of that period, I had a long road to go to get out of that mindset, you know, like of not wanting to be here. You know, it's been a long journey. And ironically, I almost died twice. Once booze really, really took its toll on my body. I had over 100 seizures in my last 10 months of drinking, and one grand mal seizure that almost killed me, really close. And then I had a near tragic accident that was not booze related that almost killed me. And then I lost a child. And then after all of that, I still wanted to kill myself. So after all of that, stuff that I went through, and I'm still here, and I have a purpose, or I didn't know what it was, but I still wanted to not be here, and so that's why I say, it's a thinking disease, and depression is real, and the alcoholic disease, at least in me, and as identified in the the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever, like that, I fully identify with that, that mental obsession and physical craving, and I'm not really like a God pusher. I have my own reasons for a higher power, that I believe in. But yeah, so, all of that has led me to fill all of my time with recovery stuff. And I wish I had done it sooner, because I was still not in recovery, even though I was sober,
Yeah.
And that took me a long time to figure out sobriety versus recovery,
It's one of our most popular episode topics is sobriety versus recovery. We might have to do it again and have you back on that for that one. Yeah, for sure. No, that's one hell of a story. And I think that's so important. You talked about having a purpose, and that is huge with all of you and all of your stories that you guys are sharing right now. When you find your purpose, then you have a way to fill your time that feels really meaningful, right? Then the boredom goes away because you know exactly why you're here and you know exactly what you need to be doing. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about right there. And it's a really beautiful thing that you've found that now.
Well, it was always chasing something, right?
Yeah.
I was always chasing a buzz or chasing that feeling, or when you were a kid and you got drunk and maybe, you had your first kiss, or you had a good experience with something, right? Whatever it was. I mean, a sporting event, or you played a really great game, or, you get this feeling and you want to hold on to that forever. You know what I mean? And you just chase it. And so I just spent my life chasing stuff, chasing the buzz or the girl or the paycheck or whatever it was. And I mean, it took me until I was into my 40s before I even started to even care to figure out who I was authentically.
Right.
And I think about all the time wasted. I mean, I wasted more time trying to find the bottle that I hid, that I lost, that I couldn't remember where I hid it. You know what I mean? I spend more time doing that kind of stupid stuff, when I could have been helping somebody or helping myself or being there for my kids more. Although my kids, fortunately, have never seen me drink, thank God. But still, that alcoholic thought process is still prevalent if I'm not careful. That selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, those motives, they're hard to squash.
For sure. Yeah. What?
I had a thought. It came and left.
I could see that in your face.
Yeah,
I know.
it's like
I'm like, oh, Steve's got something. No. All right.
it kind of came and I'll pick it back up again. Maybe.
Ian, do you have anything else? You've been a little bit quiet, just giving you the floor if you want it.
You know, you guys have pretty much covered it. One thing that I think is really important in my journey is I definitely am really scared of doing any sort of moderating. I think that I know myself well enough that I'm not that type of person. And I've heard so many horror stories of someone that had been, who knows, 15 years sober, goes to a baseball game, has a beer, then on their way home, gets a bottle of vodka and drinks half of that, drinks it the next day, and then they're hooked. They have like the drag. We like to say it in our guild, our sober guild, it's the dragon. Is poison, alcohol. So, that dragon put their claws in this person, and it took them maybe 7 years to get back to sobriety. And, who knows if that ever happens. There are people that they can never get back out of that. And then another scary thing is kindling, where, someone tries to stop, and then they might go a little bit, and then they start drinking again, and then try and stop again. And each time that happens, it gets more and more severe. So I don't allow myself to even entertain the ideas of trying to moderate. I'm a non-drinker, and I plan to stay that way. And, I think that the Sober Guild is great. It allows a level of accountability. I want to be accountable to myself and also to the other members in the group, and set a good example, and do it for, like I said, for my inner child. So,
right. And I think that's, a lot of the different topics that we bring up on this podcast are things that might drive people back to drinking in one way or another, whether they're 6 months sober or 3 weeks sober or 10 years sober. You still kind of fall into that trap. And so I think that's a lot of what we try to talk about here, is how to deal with those things, including things like, boredom or how we fill our time, so that we don't end up in a place where suddenly alcohol does sound like a good idea, no matter how far in we are, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm going to throw change into the mix here.
Okay.
Because essentially that's what it is, right? Like, okay, I'm going to fill my boredom with whatever it is. And then that's not working anymore. I'm no longer fulfilled by it, or I've tried something, but now I don't know what to do again. And I mean, I've changed a whole bunch of times. I filled my boredom with a whole bunch of different things, whether that was, and especially early on, I stayed super connected. I said good morning to over 60 people at one point in my recovery. It was something that I did. It's not something I do anymore. That's not something fulfilling. I started cutting it all back. I started changing what that looks like, because it was no longer something that served its purpose. And I discovered at some point in time that was serving a purpose that was helping keeping me sober. And it wasn't even that. I kind of liked the attention. And so I needed to claw back on that to figure out what was more. And what I discovered is a lot of my time I filled with self-discovery.
Yeah.
Who am I is one of the questions. A lot of the questions that people ask is, how do I do the thing? How do I feel? I don't like anything. Try. It doesn't matter if you don't even like it. I've never tried it before. I didn't try baking. I didn't know I was going to like baking bread when I tried to bake it. I didn't know I was going to like talking to someone on the phone on my way home, but it worked out. I didn't I don't know what the outcome of a lot of these things were when I started them.
Like, it's totally okay to try a new thing and
Yeah.
hate it and be like, nope, that's not for me. And then move on to trying the next thing. Like, that is okay. You don't have to like it all.
It's also totally okay to try something and suck.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, completely suck at it. Like, if Ian gave me a paintbrush and my painting was next to his, you would be like, that one is abstract. That one is art. Completely different things, dude. Completely different things. So there's the change. I think I'm going to wrap this up, but there's the change, right? A lot of it is there's a massive change, and then there's an evolution that comes in part of that. And I think we've all, you all touched on a little bit of your own evolution, Ben, even after 18 years, the evolution of where you began to where things fell off and got worse, and then how you've picked it all back up again. And Peggy started out, anger, something that you hung on to, but it also served its own purpose. Ian, you lost your art. You completely dropped it all. Your time was consumed with other things that weren't near as fulfilling. And it's shortly after you quit, it was something that you picked back up again. And you got involved in a group, and I got involved with a group, and Julie got involved with a group, and it was something, and it wasn't just like the not drink alcohol part. It was connecting with other people that had the same sort of problem that I had, and I got to listen to them figure out how they figured their stuff out, and I got to take what worked for me, and I got to try and shove some of it down my own throat, and I had to find my own way through it all. And that's what I heard all of you talk about too, is finding your own way through it all.
I feel like the tagline for this episode needs to be fill your time with your evolution.
Ooh.
That's what everybody has talked about here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good call. Nice wrap up, Steve.
You're welcome. It had nothing to do with the notes that I wrote down either. It's just how it come out. So thank you, Ian, and thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Ben.
Thank you
for spending this hour with us and showing up and sharing your experiences with everyone. I really appreciate your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
To our listeners, if you've made it this far, we are looking for podcast guests this season. If this is something you are interested in, send us a message, let us know, and we'll try and get you on here in the future. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. We hope you found this episode helpful. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow Through the Glass Recovery Podcast so you don't miss any new episodes. Season 3 is out now. We're looking forward to sharing new episodes with you.